Good afternoon, everyone. Guys, what has been happening in the last 4-5 days is absolutely unbelievable. We've got more floods in Spain. We've got the absolute death spiral of the British economy. We have got more and more likelihood now that British troops will be in Ukraine. And again, I've said this, I've been saying this for like the best part of a year now. Britain will lead what's left of NATO in Europe against the Russians. We've got the Americans now. I mean, I don't think anybody can say that the Americans are not already involved in this conflict in the Middle East. And while all this is happening, we've got the absolute insanity. You know, I've read this about 4 or 5 times and I've looked into these articles and I still think it's satire. I still don't believe that this actually happened, even though I've seen it on, mainstream media, even though I've read the reports, even though I've seen the lady in question's interview online. Guys, I can't believe this has happened. In the guys, wherever you are in the world, I'll put the links in the description, but in the United Kingdom now, people are getting investigated by the police for non-crime incidents. Then these non-crime incidents were tweets or X posts that they did over a year ago. So just contextualize this, guys, right now. We have got an epidemic of crime in the United Kingdom. We have got out of control lack of policing. Every police force is stretched. We've got a situation where the police are actively saying now they can't respond to, when I'm saying it, it's just hilarious. The police are now coming out and saying that they can't respond to every incident, but they find time to go and, question people, investigate things people posted online over a year ago that are not criminal. There's no crime being committed. Nobody's complained, but this is an active investigation. Guys, can you just contextualize how Orwellian that actually is? People are now being investigated for things that are not crimes when there are real crimes actually happening, but we don't have the manpower to go and investigate, this. Guys, if you didn't think we're in an Orwellian death spiral, please, you really need to start looking at the news, looking what's happening, looking at these little policies that get passed 3 or 4 years ago, and then they just seem to disappear, and then they raise their weary heads. If you can investigate someone for a non-crime incident, it's not a huge leap to arrest someone for a non-crime incident, to hold somebody against their will for a non-crime incident. Can you imagine that now? An amount where we have maybe next year when the precedence has been set. All right, okay, well, we can we can investigate these non-crime incidents. Okay, can we hold people without charge on non-crime incidents? Yeah, let's do that. Where are our checks and balances? Where's the ability for the normal people to say, no, we're not having that? If that's not a crime and that's not being passed through Parliament and it's not had scrutiny, guess what? Guess what, sweet cheeks? I can do that as much as I want because it's not a crime. In the United States, they have the Second Amendment, which protects the people of the United States against the tyrannical government. Let me just ask you this question now, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, obviously, because I don't want to get it put into the gulag for a 3 stretch. But I've said this many, many times. If the government passed something, and the government have a majority, they can pass pretty much whatever they want into law. If the government in the United Kingdom passed something into law that was so disgusting, so devastating, that it was just unbelievable and everybody was against it, legally, we have to do it. Legally, we have no way of fighting back the government and saying, no, we don't want to do that. So where do we stand with this when people start knocking on our doors and saying, hey guys, listen, yeah, you did a tweet 6 years ago. We kind of don't like the tone of that tweet. So you and your family, you guys are going to come have to spend a few nights in the cells. Where does this end? It's absolutely insane. If you was on our live stream earlier, a lot of people were talking about the migrant crisis in the United Kingdom and how it's just not coming to an end. And people have accepted now that it's not coming to an end. But at some point, that will have to come to an end. Now, whether whether the end to the migrant crisis is literally we are all in the United Kingdom standing shoulder to shoulder saying, this is all right, isn't it? Yeah, it's good. Are you all right down there? Yeah, I'm good. Everything's fine here. I don't want to get sent to prison, but then the prisoners have got big, big apartments with TV, and people are thinking, is it better to go? I don't know. But, people are, right now in the United Kingdom, people have accepted this migrant crisis. People have accepted that it's happening. There's no stopping it. And people are starting to, people starting to form groups. And if you look back through history, when people start to form groups, they form these groups, they form these committees, they form these. Normally, it starts as a talk group, and then they start, then they start to, what's the word I'm looking for? They will start to fight back, and this is how you get an insurgency. This is how you have homegrown radicalization, and we're seeing this homegrown. We're seeing it in real time. We are watching this, ladies and gentlemen, in HD. The United Kingdom is in absolute free fall. So I am going to talk about what's been happening in the United Kingdom after this. But what I want to focus on is the financial destruction of the United Kingdom that's happening right now with this budget, with what Rachel Reeves just announced with pensions. Guys, if you have a pension right now, or you're at an age where you start to think about your pension and think about your pension pot and where you're in your retirement, guys, you need to really understand what Rachel Reeves has just done, because, well, I'll come on to that at the end of the video. But what I want to talk about first, guys, is I want to talk about the situation in the Middle East. For those people who've been saying that Trump's gonna, there's gonna be no wars, there's gonna be, there's gonna be peace in the Middle East. No, there's not gonna be peace in the Middle East. There's going to be more and more conflict in the Middle East. Donald Trump, well, he doesn't yet, but when he's inaugurated, he will be in charge of the only military in the world that has the capacity to go into Iran and stop Iran's nuclear program. These things have already been set out in US legislation. So these things are all already have legal precedence. It's already passed. It's a done deal. Now, let me get this date, guys, because the U.S. military says strikes in Syria targeted Iranian-backed groups. So this, I'm just trying to find the date on this. So this is from the 12th of November, guys. So what was that? Yesterday, maybe? Day before? So 12th of November, the U.S. military has carried out strikes against targets in Syria. You see how now, previously there were strikes by the US military in Yemen, and these things, the United States is already involved in this conflict in the Middle East. Just read the headline again. United States military says strikes in Syria targeted Iranian-backed groups. So the United States, I'm assuming they don't have the authority from the Syrian government, the United States are striking targets in Syria. Not only are they striking targets in Syria, but they're striking Iranian-backed targets in Syria. Guys, if you think that this conflict's not going to drag the United States in, I don't, you're probably one of those people who watches the mainstream media and thinks they're telling you the truth. So what this is going to do, you're just going to see more and more of these escalations in the Middle East. You're going to see more and more of this rhetoric building up until it gets to a stage where the Iranians and the Israelis and the Lebanese and the Houthis, all these guys are just absolutely, firing missiles at each other. There's asymmetric warfare going left, right, and center. The Israelis, although the Israelis have the Israeli military capacity it's a first world, they have a first world military. The pager attack that they conducted on Hezbollah, the logistics and the coordination that had to go into that is absolutely mind-boggling. But but the reality is they don't have the logistical support to fight a war outside of their own. Outside of their own borders. They can go outside of their own borders, but not for long. They can push into Gaza, they can push into Lebanon. They can potentially push into Syria, but not far and not for long, because they don't have that logistical capacity to back them up. Now, if you when I've been developing this plan in my head, I've had to use numbers from somewhere. So I've used the model of the invasion of Iraq in 2003. So if you think about that model, because, you know, there's a lot of differences, but I had to go with a number from somewhere. So 600,000 troops that you would need to take Iran, thereabouts. So if you take that number, and there's a lot of numbers and open source information about the logistical supply chain in Iraq in 2003. So if you look at that number, because the information is readily available, if you think, okay, somebody is going to need 600,000 troops to push into Iran, well, guess what? The United States military can provide those numbers. And again, 600,000 isn't the teeth arms, it isn't the infantry, it isn't 600,000 infantry, it's 600,000, because I think it's if for every one infantry you have 7 people supporting them, when you're talking about cooks, logistics, drivers, technicians, you know, all those people behind the scenes who are supporting the infantry who are moving forwards. So if you think that, you know, to take Iran, you need 600,000 troops. Guys, I've said this so many times. Just try and visualize now how much food, water, ammunition, diesel, petrol, you know, you will need to keep that military. In fact, you know what, guys, forget all that. Just think about food. Just think about how much food you will need to feed 600,000 people for one day. Then times that by 7 for a week. The amount, the numbers, and the logistical support that you need is absolutely phenomenal. And the only way, bar none, that you would be able to get this into, into Iran is by sea. There's no other way around it. And the only people in the world who have that capacity are the United States. So is there going to be a conflict in the Middle East? Well, it's already happening. Do the United States want to stop the Iranians developing their nuclear capacity? Yes, they already passed that into law in like 2023. So you see the direction we're going. You know, you understand when this is going to happen. It will probably the earliest this could happen would be March next year. I think that's too early, so I think it'll be the year after that. Now we say March because King's March to war. The weather in March, you're moving into the warmer period, but it's still cool enough for Western troops to be able to operate there. When the weather gets too hot, when the weather gets too bad, the troops won't have time to acclimatize, and it becomes an absolute, you know, it becomes a logistical nightmare. Hang on, guys, I've just got a message. It may be relevant. No, it's not. Now, there's more news out here, guys, and this was from yesterday. The UN nuclear watchdog chief heads for Iran, stresses a need for a diplomatic solution. Everybody knows what's happening, guys. You know, the Iranians, they have their nuclear capacity deep underground. They've probably got it underneath a mountain or something. But the problem here is they've probably got the entrance underneath the mountain, and the actual facility could be 20, 30 kilometers away, because you can dig under a mountain, and then once you get all your bulldozers, your digging, your machinery underground, you can dig these corridors, these passageways, these tunnels as far as you want, and then that's where you build your facilities. The Iranians, I would suspect, have been using these tactics since 2003. 2003, Iraq got absolutely decimated by the US Air Force. There was an absolute devastating, I think it was 5 days of 24-hour air attacks. Literally anything with an antenna went goodbye, anything with a turret went goodbye. All sorts of stuff was happening in 2003. And the Iranians will have noticed this. They'll have seen the logistics. They'll have seen the logistics that the United States can bring to bear. And they'll have said, right, okay, we're not going to have anything above ground that can be touched by fast air. Everything's going to go underground where fast air can't touch anything. And I get it. You know, some of you guys think that there are bunker busters and there's all this sort of stuff. No. you get to a level where you can't be touched. Now, I don't know what that level is because the munitions will be different, but there will be a level where it doesn't matter if you keep going down, the mass that pulls into these craters after your initial blast, it will just act as another top cover. So at some point, you won't be able to get down any further, and that's why I think. Well, that's why I'd be pretty confident to say the Iranians have dug anything that is of any strategic importance underground, and that's why you need a ground invasion to take Iran. I don't think Trump's going to pull off there, guys. I think that's that's pretty much a done deal. And again, I've been saying this is going to be happening for the best part of a year now. You're seeing this divergence where the Labour government in the United Kingdom are not really interested in a conflict in the Middle East, and the United States, they're not really interested in a conflict in Eastern Europe. So the Iranian conflict, guys, that I feel the earliest that can happen is March next year. I think that's too early, so I think it's going to be March the year after. But time will tell, guys. And a lot of these timelines, they do get they do escalate and move forwards a lot quicker than I even thought they would. What's this here, guys? Right, we've got before we go into Ukraine, there's been more flooding in Spain. Now, I didn't actually realize that 20% of Spanish food exports come to the United Kingdom. So that is fruit and vegetables. Around, like I said, around 20% of all Spanish exports up to the UK are fruits and vegetables. So that means that there's going to be a substantial amount of, fruit and vegetables that's not going to be coming to the United Kingdom. Again, the Spanish government, they're well within their rights to say, listen, these floods have destroyed a load of our food, so we're banning exports this year. We are banning anyone from any exports. So that's not just going to affect the United Kingdom. That's going to affect the rest of Europe in general, who rely on Spanish exports. Now, once these things happen, you get to a critical mass. And as soon as the media says, yeah, we're having food shortages this year, everybody rushes out to the supermarket. They all buy toilet roll and pasta and things they're probably never going to eat. But you see, as soon as you reach a critical mass, you get the Karen factor. And the Karen factor for me is people who just listen to the media, panic when they're told to panic, bulk buy when they're told to bulk buy, like this thing, change your profile picture, put this flag behind it. To me, that's like a Karen person, somebody who doesn't really know the depths of what's going on in the world right now, who doesn't understand that we're heading to a global conflict of an industrial scale. But, so that's kind of what's been happening in Spain. Not many people are talking about it. Not many people are talking about the knock-on effects that this is going to have to our already broken food. How do I even say it in the UK? The war, the significant effort to degrade our farming industry right now in the United Kingdom. That's what we have. We have a significant effort to degrade the United Kingdom's farming ability. And by farming, I mean the capacity to feed ourselves, to grow our own foods, and not be reliant on other countries' imports. Because guess what? Sometimes other countries have floods. Sometimes other countries say, you know what? We're not going to export this year because we need this food for ourselves. So guys, Ukraine, before I talk about Ukraine, I think I'm going to do this every video now. I think I'm going to give you an update on what's happened, what's actually happened on the ground. So let me just share this with you. So this is what the ground in Ukraine looked like as of the 13th of the 10th this year, so like a month ago. Now you've got Pokrovsk here. Further this way, you've got Dnipro and the River Dnipro, and up that way you've got Kiev. Now, guys, like I keep saying on all my videos, every day the Russians are taking small amounts of ground in multiple locations. I'll put the link to this I'll put the link to this map in the description below. But people don't understand how bad it is in Ukraine right now. We've kind of become like, the media cycle has just gone from Ukraine. It seems like nobody cares anymore. You've got this region here, Pokrovsk. Pokrovsk has turned into a fortress. Pokrovsk is a key location. If Pokrovsk falls, that's going to be realistically, you might as well, if Pokrovsk falls, the Ukrainians might as well just pull everything back behind the Dnipro, because there isn't anything to stop them. There's nothing physically to stop them now, but if the Russians pushed forward and left Pokrovsk intact, you know, they would just get attacks from behind lines. You can do airdrops. You can do all sorts of stuff. So, you know, that is the key location. Now, I'm just going to fast forward this and look at the amount of ground the Russians are taking daily, but also the Ukrainians are not pushing back in any locations. The Ukrainians look like, at best, they're slowing the Russians down. Where are we? That's working. Can you see how the Russians are moving forwards? Guys, that to me is absolutely unbelievable, especially in this region here. Especially in this region here. This is really key, because remember what I said like a couple of videos ago? I said the Russians are going to come down here to the south and they're going to come take a commanding point on this southern aspect of Pokrovsk, and they'll probably hold 10 kilometers away like they've held here. Now, the significance of holding off 10 kilometers, which is roughly what this distance is, that's because they're well within range of their medium range mortars. They're 120 millimeter mortars. So they can use indirect fire on Pokrovsk at this range. They don't have to bring in heavy artillery. They don't have to bring in, you know, Grad missile systems or anything. They can use stuff that they have readily available. So that's why that's why they're holding at 10 kilometers. But guys, the situation is absolutely unbelievable. The amount of ground, as you can see from this map, that the Russians are taking every day, it's phenomenal. So yesterday, Boris Johnson came out as I predicted it would happen. You know, people are going to start calling for NATO boots on the ground because the Ukrainians can't hold. So let me find this article, guys. Is that it? No, that's not it. Oh, I may have lost it. Hang on. There we are. Right, so let me just get this one up on the share screen, guys. Here we are. British troops could be sent to Ukraine if Trump withdraws aid, warns Boris Johnson. Now, I know what a lot of you guys will be thinking. You'll be saying, oh, Boris Johnson, he's washed up. He's an ex-prime minister. He's got no authority. I agree. On paper, he doesn't have authority, but he's ridiculously influential still. He's people, guys, you don't understand. Well, if you're Ukrainian, you'll understand. The Ukrainians love Boris Johnson. He's like a rock star when he goes out there. Like, there was a song in the Ukrainian charts about Boris Johnson. It was like one of these Eastern European techno songs. If I can find it, I'll put the link to that in the description as well. The former prime minister warns a Russian victory would lead to an even bigger threat on our borders. And he is right. You know, he is 100% right. If the Russians push and steamroll Ukraine, which, if you've just looked at that map, guys, tell me, do we think the Ukrainians are stopping the Russians, or do you think the Russians are moving through the Ukrainian positions at their own pace? I think that the only thing that is stopping the Russians from making a huge land grab up to the river Dnipro, or potentially just outside the city of Dnipro, is the fact that in 2022, the Russians, their infantry, their mobility guys, they overextended themselves and they got cut off from their own logistics. So I think Vladimir Putin said to the guys, right, I want slow and steady, nobody overextend. You keep moving through this ground, you keep taking ground, you do it daily, you do it slowly. That way, you're not going to overextend yourselves and you're not going to attract unwanted Western attention. So the article goes on and it talks about, but in an interview with GB News, Mr. Johnson warned, if Ukraine goes down, then we face an even bigger threat on the borders of a European continent where the democracies butt up to against Russia. So these things are what we've been saying on this channel for like the best part of a year now. We all said that this was going to happen. We're seeing this diversions now. And can you see it, guys? Can you see it that the United States is no longer interested they're no longer interested in supporting this war in Ukraine because of reasons. And do we really think that that's got anything to do with political or, political solutions or political will? No, of course not. The big prime defense contractors, they know that there's going to be a conflict in Iran. So the big prime defense contractors are saying, yeah, well, let those guys have Ukraine. We're gonna need to, we're gonna have Iran in the Middle East, which would be more lucrative because the Ukrainian conflict is gonna be a ground conflict. It's gonna be an infantry conflict. It's going to be a section commanders war. What do I mean by that? The Iraq and Afghanistan after the initial invasions, after the initial invasion of Iraq turned into a special forces war, whereby you would use small teams of special forces to go out there and detain these high-ranking officials of the insurgency. Same as Afghanistan, you would use small teams of special forces to go in, take out the leadership of these units, the leadership of these resistance forces, and the rest of the guys underneath, they just fall because nobody wants to take leadership. Because when you take leadership, you hear, helicopter blades in the middle of the night, and then that leader's, he's been taken away, and he never sees his family again. So nobody wants to be the leadership. Now, this situation in Ukraine, guys, it is not going to be a special forces war. It's going to be a green war. It's going to be a section commanders war. Why? Because you have two front lines. And those two front lines, this way is safe and this way is safe for these guys, relatively safe. So it's not going to be the case of, some special forces flying over in a helicopter and conducting a daring raid. No, it's not going to happen. First of all, you start doing helicopter raids in Ukraine, and these things are going to get shot out of the sky literally within minutes. Nobody's flying helicopters out there of any scale because of the threat, because of the, it's just not going to happen. There's too many air defenses on both sides. So that's taken helicopters out of the equation. So because helicopters are out of the equation, these raids deep behind enemy lines of any significance, they're just not going to work. And yes, I get it. We can have super secret special forces who can, they can live off the land and they can walk tactically for 100 miles. Okay. Let's think about that. Right. We've got Navy SEAL, we've got British special forces, and they're conducting secret raids behind enemy lines, and they're doing it all on foot because they don't have any air support. Okay, how long is that going to take? Realistically, how many of those raids can they do per week? The numbers just don't add up. It's got to be sufficient. Now, the thing with helicopters, you can do those raids really quickly because you can literally land on top of houses and all sorts of wild places. But because you can't have helicopters, that means that the only other method of travel is, by vehicle. Vehicles get bogged down. It's very difficult to, it's very, very difficult to drive off road in these parts of Ukraine that are in the Donetsk region because of the ground. They have a high water table. You just can't drive a Land Rover through a normal 4x4 over this ground. And the more vehicles you have to get involved, then the more difficult it is, because the first vehicle might get through, the second vehicle might get through, the third vehicle, because two vehicles have already gone through that area, that's facing a lot more mud. Normally, your scout vehicles are your best equipped ones, your lightest, the ones with the best off-road capability. What about your logistics? What about your medevac capacity? All this sort of stuff builds into this tactical posturing. It's just not going to happen, unfortunately, guys. This conflict in Ukraine is going to be a Green Army task. The United Kingdom will lead because the United Kingdom has the strike capacity. They have the ability to surge forward, take a location, take a town, become one-on-one combat with another unit and neutralize them. What Britain doesn't have is the heavy armor capacity that European allies do. So they would then come up as a not the rear, but the United Kingdom would be the vanguard. And from the vanguard, that's where you need the command element. You always command from the front, guys. There's no other ways around it. I've actually got a helicopter going over now, and I can tell it is a Sikorsky. What are those? Is it a Sikorsky 92? I think a Sikorsky R90. I think it's a Sikorsky R92. It's the Coast Guard one that goes east-west over our house. I couldn't tell by the engine, but anyway. So anyway, guys, that's the situation in Ukraine. From the map, you guys can see that things are just going from bad to worse from the Ukrainians. Go and look at the map yourself, guys. The Ukrainians, and normally in a conflict, you would see, you would see this side take some ground, then this side would lose some ground, then they'd take some more, and then you would see this battlefield giving back and forth. Guys, it's not been back and forth in Ukraine. Literally, in the east, you have just got the Russians taking every day, guys, all right? Go on that map, guys. The link will be in the description. Go on that map and just rewind from like a couple of months ago and look at the vast amounts of ground that the Russians are taking every day. It's unbelievable. So that means that the Russians are at some point going to make a breakthrough. People are starting to call for the United Kingdom to take the lead in Europe. Boris Johnson's out there saying British troops will have to be on the ground. There's rumors now that Vladimir Zelensky is either developing a nuclear weapon or they have a nuclear weapon. I do think there's some credibility into that. The Ukrainians have all the manufacturing capacity that they need. They have the nuclear material. They have the industrial base, the metallurgy knowledge, and all these things. And let's not forget, they've probably got some that were left behind by the collapse of this from the collapse of the Soviet Union, or when they gained their independence in '93. So do we really think that when Zelensky's planning his war and people are telling him that he can't use these long-range weapons inside Russia, do we think that when Yuri, who's 88 years old, and he comes up and he's like, "Hey, Vladimir, I used to work on the Soviet Union's nuclear systems. I can build you one." Do we really think Zelensky said, No. We know that Biden's going to keep giving us. No, of course not. He's going to, at least behind closed doors, say, right, okay, do a study into what you actually need, source all the materials, and then put them in a secure location. So if we do need it, you can put that together relatively quickly. I do think there's, some truth in these rumors that the Ukrainians are looking to obtain a nuclear weapon, or they already have one, or they're building one. Remember, Zelensky actually proposed this to who was it? Was it as part of his part of Zelensky's plan? Either they get membership to NATO or they get their own nuclear weapons. Well, it doesn't look like they're getting NATO membership. And again, they can't have NATO membership because NATO membership clearly states a country can't be in conflict while they're applying for NATO membership. It just doesn't work. Doesn't really matter on the grand scheme of things because NATO's over, guys. It's over. It's finished. It's not coming back. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Go directly to jail. NATO's finished, guys. We're not going to see any significant NATO deployments. You may do on paper. There may be some paper tiger exercises, but the reality is, if Donald Trump with the United States stop funding NATO collapses. They'll have to rename it. Of course, there'll still be the alliances. It'll just make a lot of headlines. The United States will be focused in the Middle East, and the United Kingdom will lead what's left of NATO, whether that's going to be a European army. They're talking about what is it? There's a Baltic. There's other defense backs, basically. It will be a European army, a European security scheme, something like that. But that will be led by the United Kingdom. It has to be. The United Kingdom are the only country who have the relative capacity to do that, which is the strike capacity. So, guys, if you live in the United Kingdom and you like buying stuff, like food, water, stuff, it's not a good time for you. So Retailers warn Rachel Reeves of inflation and job losses after budget tax hikes. So this was from yesterday. A letter to the Chancellor from the British Retail Consortium and seen by Sky News warns that the budget has made job losses inevitable and higher prices certainty. It doesn't matter now, guys. You're seeing the deconstruction of the United Kingdom because, and again, I don't know why this is. I don't know if, I genuinely don't know if we've got conflicting entities. I don't know if they're doing this on purpose to say, right, guys, listen, everybody's poor. We're struggling with food. But if you want to join the military, you get 3 meals a day. You get a good pay. So I don't know which way they're going around with this. I really don't. But everybody knows now that when Rachel Reeves gets up there and she has some sort of budget, she has some sort of tax cuts, or she has some sort of, brilliant idea, everybody knows it's going to make things worse. Why? Why is this happening? And, there's a lot of dark reasons. You can go down some really deep, dark rabbit holes. I'm going to leave that question open, but I'm going to say what I say always. The way to build Britain's economy is not to tax people. It's not to, it's certainly not international investment. Guys, I know I keep saying this. When you hear the phrase international investment, whatever country you're in, whether you're in the United States, whether you're somewhere in Europe, wherever you are, it doesn't matter. If you hear the words international investment, though that phrase is synonymous with international wealth extraction, because investors, and again, literally, I remember Edward Snowden saying the biggest conspiracies are not the ones hidden in back rooms, they're the ones that are out there for everyone to see. So the word investment kind of means you want a return for your investment. I don't know if there are any investment companies out there who don't want a return on their investment. Maybe there is, I don't know. So normally an investor would want he would want his investment paid off within the first 5 years. So let's just use that as a basis. When the government said, and I don't think this is even ever going to happen, but when the government said there's 63 billion of inward investment, international investment they've managed to secure. Well, let's do the maths. Do you know what, guys? I probably can't do the maths for that off the top of my head. Let's just say it was 50 billion. Let's just say it was 50 billion. And those investors wanted to their profits recuperated within the first 5 years. Year 6, guess what happens? Year 6, we have 10 billion leave our economy. Just gone. And that happens every year after that. So that money that's leaving our economy, it doesn't get spent on horse riding lessons for kids. It doesn't get spent on Christmas decorations for your local town centre. It doesn't get spent on planting trees or new parks. No, none of that happens. That will then go and sit in an offshore account somewhere, earning interest. And that offshore account will then fund these investors' lavish lifestyles. That is 100% what happens when you hear international investment. Now, the way around this, the way to sort all these problems out is we need to have a fund in the United Kingdom. I think I should do a video on this and try and get, have a fund in the United Kingdom. Rather than sending billions every year away in foreign aid, we just say, right, okay, every year we're going to have 331 million. We're going to give $1 million to each one of our local councils. And school leavers, when you leave school, when you leave college, probably not secondary school, but when you leave college, if you want to go into the business world, which I think more people should, you set a business up, you have a business plan, you go to your local council and you bid for that money. A caveat of you winning that money, if your business is successful, is you employ local people and you stay in that region. So can you imagine now all over the United Kingdom, if we were developing successful businesses, if we were developing homegrown businesses that are loyal to this country, that are loyal to their local area? That's when you get investment in your local area. That's when you bring people's quality of life up. international investment, guys, it literally is just international wealth extraction. So today, Rachel Reeves has come out with another radical pension shake-up to boost growth. Let me share this with you guys because it's absolutely hilarious, and I'll show you what I mean exactly. So here we are, guys. Look, you know, the headlines. So, you know, the headlines from the BBC. So we should take that with a pinch of salt to boost growth. Where is it, guys? The government wants to merge the UK's 86 council pension schemes into a handful of pension mega funds. So remember how I always talk about late stage capitalism, late stage democracy. We're now going into a new one. Late stage pension funds, and none of this is good. The problem with our pension system at the moment is there's too many people taking pensions and not enough people paying into that system. So it's going to collapse at some point. It can't go on the way, you know, the way it is. I think this is the beginning to our. I think this is the beginning to the end of our pension systems. I think we're just going to have to keep printing money, and this what is it? Modern monetary theory, guys. That is the exact same reasons why the Roman Empire fell. It's hoped, so we're hoping that the changes will lead to billions of pounds being invested in UK in areas such as energy infrastructure, tech startups, and public services. Do you see, guys, how wildly out of touch they are? Can you see from reading this article how wildly incompetent they are? Like, it's really winding me up now how incompetent they are. And I don't think they're doing this on purpose either, because only an absolute buffoon could think this would work, you know. So it's hoped that the changes will lead to billions. It's not going to happen, guys. What's going to happen with this is you're going to get, I don't know how quickly this will happen, but one of these pension mega funds will go bust. I can pretty much guarantee you this, because when you, like, they're taking the, you know, the council pension fund, 86, and they're putting them into mega funds now. Mega funds mean that they're run by fewer and fewer numbers. So when you have things run by fewer and fewer numbers, it's got good things. There's good things and there are bad things. When money's involved, I don't see the good things, guys. Because all it takes is somebody at the top to be relatively corrupt, somebody at the top to try and, you know, sway the market one way or another for personal gain, and everything's going to go wrong. Reeves told the BBC that the UK public sector pension funds in their current form were not big enough to generate good returns for British savers. That's just an absolute fabrication. It's just a lie. It's just an absolute lie. These, you know, the risk versus reward is exactly what you put into it. Like if you're betting on the stock market, if you put £100 million in, you're taking that 100 million risk. Yes, of course, you're going to get greater returns, but you're also taking greater risk. So what that could say is, what she could say, and the statement still be true, is the pension funds in their current form were not big enough to generate in substantial risks for British taxpayers. Because when you're generating these big returns, you're also going with the big risks. But some argue the changes are not without risk. Yeah, so you see these guys, right? They think we're stupid. They think we don't understand how financial investment works. They think we don't understand how, you know, betting on the stock market works. They are literally gaslighting us. You know, I keep saying this, guys, or you know, the government gaslighting us. I'll just read this bit, guys, and then we'll close this video down because I've been going for quite a while. Workers in local government schemes have pensions based on salary and service length, known as defined benefits pension, and they will not see any change to their payments as a result of their plans. Most private sector workers are in schemes where they pay into a savings pot each month, and their eventual pension depends upon the size of this when they retire. So the government is considering setting a minimum size requirement for these defined contribution schemes. And it's hoped that, again, guys, it's hoped. So it's not going to happen. It's just hoped. It's hoped that larger funds will be more efficient to run and generate greater return, which could mean people's pension savings grow faster. Look at the words they're using, hoped and could. Guys, this is the end to our pension system. It really is. Like this, that would read correct if you said it's hoped that they will produce more risk and we might see more money. It's just absolutely insane. They're using so many caveats and get out words to this, guys. It's unbelievable. All that's going to happen here is you're going to have the pension funds. They're going to be given to one of Rachel Reeves's mates, maybe one of Lord Ali's mates. In fact, isn't Lord Ali in that? I think Lord, let me check this real quick. Guys, I know I said I'd get off right. Hang on, guys. Hang on. Let me check, because I think Lord Ali does pension investments. I think he does. Let me just check this out, guys. Let me check on his Wikipedia page. It's his birthday, so 16th of November. He's a British entrepreneur, positions in several television programs. He serves as chief executive, Silvergate, House of Lords, Labour Party. He's the first open game. All right, I can't see anything. Business career. Financial magazine for crediting success. Went to the city, second career. Right, okay. I'm just going to, guys, I didn't even think of this. I was just thinking out loud. I'm just going to read this here. So this is Lord Ali. He then went to the city for a second career in investment banking. Guys, investment banking is, guys, when you look into this and you just see the levels of, anyway, I don't want to get a 3 stretch in the gulag for saying the bad, for saying potentially things that may be a non-crime incident against Lord Ali or any of his mates. But guys, listen, you guys know what's happening. You guys can read between the lines and you guys are fantastic. Guys, I'm going to cut this now. Don't forget to like and comment and subscribe. 40% of my viewers are not subscribers, guys. So if you've got to the end of the video, please, guys, hit those buttons below. Go share our other platforms, guys. I'm going to degrade it. I'll get you guys another video later.